Hello, dear viewer. In this episode, I was going to answer all 7 questions from the speed round, but that simply turned out to just be too long. The video ended up being 20 minutes long, and most of my answers were only half explained, and it turned out drier than I liked. It also took a long time to make what I had, and I'm guessing I'd spend about the next 2 months on just the Bible Contradictions quiz show video, if I dedicated that much time to it. So I'm scrapping that project, or at least the plan to answer all of the contradiction questions all at once. And instead I'm just going to answer each one over time whenever I feel like not coming up with my original idea myself. So, in this video, I'm going to answer the most difficult contradiction question. Now, in all the other questions, the questioner is playing something like a tautological word game in order to say, holy but stupid, and he picks 2 passages which miss each other's points while declaring my contradiction. But in question 3 during the speed round, NonStampCollector has a point, and he asks this question. According to Genesis, were humans created before the animals? It's a question of order, okay? Which came first, the chicken or the egg? Which came first, the animals or the humans? The truly contradictory answers to this question occur back to back in Genesis chapters 1 and 2. Let's read together. Genesis 1, verses 25 to 26. And then God made the beasts of the earth to her kind, and the behemoth to her kind, and every creeper of the ground to their kind. And then God saw that it was good. And then God said, let us make man in our image, like our likeness, and let them reign in the fish of the sea, and in the flyers of the heavens, and in the behemoths, and in all the earth, and in every creeper, the one which creeps unto the earth. Genesis 2, verse 19 reads, And then Yahweh, God, formed from the ground every beast of the field, and every flyer of the heavens, and then brought them unto Adam, to see what he may call them to him. And every one which the man called a living soul to him, it was his name. So, Genesis 1 says that animals were created first, and then God made humans. While Genesis 2 says that humans were created first, and then God made animals. Someone screwed up to give us these contradictory accounts. Now, how do I reconcile this? Well, as in all these questions, I investigate. Now, Genesis 1 is all about the order of events and is much more focused on what happened when. And so, it is very explicit that animals were created first. Genesis 2, on the other hand, emphasizes what was created where, and is specific to God making the Garden of Eden. Now, within the narrative of Genesis 2, the timing of the creation of the animals sounds like a detail rather than the focus. So, since Genesis 1 is more explicit about the timing, that animals came before man, then what happens in Genesis 2 that gives us the impression, the appearance, that God created the animals after man? This is where I dig down into the original language to see what's happening grammatically. This is also where I personally start to have a lot of fun. You may disagree, but here we go. This is the word in question. It's a Hebrew word, and it's pronounced wayitzer, or is it. And it means, and then he, referring to God, that's the subject of the sentence, and then God formed, or does it. I won't parse too much here, but I will explain a few things. These are the consonants. These are the vowels. You read Hebrew from right to left. It's backwards from English. And you sound things out like this. This part, yitzer, means he made, past tense. This first letter here is called a waw, and it functions as a conjunction. Okay, it's roughly translated as and. Now, there's a couple different vowels that can go under the waw to indicate what kind of conjunction it is. This vowel is a patak, or is it? It makes an ah sound, okay, and indicates sequential action when placed under a while like this. Like so in Genesis 2:18. And then God said blah 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 blah. Genesis 2:19. And then God made blah 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 animals. One event happens and then another on a timeline in a narrative sequence. Now, the other vowel that can go under a while is a schwa. Okay, the schwa makes a short I sound like an I, and a schwa under the wa would indicate a disjunctive wa, it's called, which indicates simultaneous action, behind the scenes action, or prior action. So, Wuyitzer could be translated to something like, and he made, or and meanwhile he made, or and he had made. Now, when we consult the Leningrad Codex, one of the oldest, most reliable copies of the Old Testament in Hebrew, when we're looking to see which one comes in there, to see what vowel they have in Genesis 2, verse 19, and we look, and it's a patak. Blast. But wait, there's more to this tale. The Leningrad Codex dates to about 1000 AD. That's 1,000 years, roughly, after Christ. The Dead Sea Scrolls, however, date to right around the time of Christ. And what do you know? They don't have vowels. That's right. These things right here, they didn't even exist in the original written Hebrew. Sometime in the 6th century AD, a group of Jews known as the Masoretes began adding vowels to their consonant-only writings to make them easier to read. Go figure. Language is kind of hard to read without vowels. Now, did you catch that? That's 6 centuries that the Masoretes kept all the freaking vowels straight from memory. And doing a damn good job, too. However, it strongly appears to me that the Masoretes goofed when it came to Genesis 2:19 Wayitzer. Sorry guys, that was supposed to be a schwa, animals came first. For me, that would be enough to close the case. But where's the fun in that? That would be just one way to resolve this. Now check this out. Authorship of the Pentateuch, the first 5 books of the Bible, is generally attributed to Moses, and I'll credit him with Exodus through most of Deuteronomy. I have more opinions on that, but I'll leave those to myself for now. However, any genius can see that the events of Genesis far predate the events of Moses' life. I'll give Moses credit again for compiling the events of Genesis into one book, but we, you and I, are talking about a time long before the literary rules and grammatical constructions were set. Okay, the literary rules, grammatical constructions of Hebrew, okay, they weren't as rigid as they were in the monarchic period or even as they were during the time of Christ. The rule for what vowel goes under the wall may have been different when Genesis was written, or even when Moses compiled it. Hey, Masoretes, it looks like you may be off the hook. Now get this. Here's a third way we can resolve this. If we take the events of Genesis seriously, and I think we should, then there's a Tower of Babel and a confusion of languages in between Moses and the Garden of Eden. That means, at the very least, if I'm correct, that Genesis 2 wasn't even written in Hebrew. Did you catch that? Ancient Hebrew may have been trying to capture the literary form of some other language, which, if I'm wildly correct about this, further strengthens my case that it should not be a patak here, that it should be a schwa instead, that the Masoretes are awesome, that the Leningrad Codex is awesome, that everything is awesome, and that the animals were created first and then man. I rest my case. Now, wasn't that fun? It's a lot better than answering 7 stupid questions all in one sitting, believe you me. So, like I said, I'm going to just answer these Bible contradiction questions sporadically whenever I feel like it. In the meantime, I'm probably going to go back to and do some more history, some more resurrection stuff. So I hope to see you again soon. Peace.